please welcome Entertainment Weekly Radio's Jessica Shaw.
Hello, welcome to the panel for 13 Reasons Why. I'm so excited to be moderating this panel. I love this show. It's sad and it's mysterious and it's infuriating and beautiful and wonderful. And to prove that to you, before I bring out the panel, let's watch a clip.
I'm about to tell you the story of my life. More specifically, why my life ended.
If one thing had gone differently somewhere along the line, maybe none of this would have happened.
People were starting to talk. I had to do something.
Whatever Hannah thought she saw, she lied about it.
Maybe I'll never know why you did what you did. I can make you understand how it felt. If you want to know the truth, just press play.
All right. I just want to introduce the panel. Let's start immediately. Next to me, Brian Yorkie, the creator of the show. Dylan Minnette plays Clay, we just saw. Catherine Langford, who plays Hannah. Tom McCarthy, exec producer, directed the first 2 episodes. Selena Gomez, exec producer. Mandy Teefey, exec producer. And Jay Asher, the source yes. Material, who's also a consultant on the show. So, Brian, I want to talk to you a little bit. What was it about this? Had you read the book and that made you think, I need to make this?
Yeah, I had read the book. I have a niece. She's a little bit older now, but when she was younger, middle school age, early high school, we had a little bit of a reading club because I love young adult literature. I think partially because I'm sort of arrested at the age of 15. And she recommended the book 13 Reasons Why to me. And so I picked it up and read it. And as I've said before, I sat down in a night, I read it cover to cover. I didn't get up until it was done. I just kept turning pages. And when I was done reading, I thought about the book and how powerful it was, but I also thought about people I had gone to school with and people that I had perhaps not treated as kindly as I could, people who maybe I had done things that had affected their lives in ways I hadn't thought about. And it just, I remember at the time thinking, that's a powerful book to have that effect on me. So some years later, Mandy and Selena and Crystal, another one of our EPs, were looking, they'd been, I think, working to try to make it into a feature film, and had just decided to sort of see if there was something to do to make it an executive producer. And Crystal's good friends with my producing partner, Joy Gorman, at Anonymous Content, and they talked to Joy, and Joy talked to me and said, have you heard of this book, 13 Reasons Why? And I was like, I want the job. Yes, what is it? Whatever it is, I want to do it. It's such an important story and deserves to be told. And that's how it's, and luckily, I guess as I've said before, they probably couldn't find a real TV writer, so they hired me. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, just the Pulitzer, Tony, no biggie. Let's get that guy. And Tom, how about you with Cubby? This is the first, directing these 2 are the first things you directed since Spotlight, right? And I as I was watching your episodes in particular, I was thinking about the similarities in sort of teasing out details of lives to sort of find a truth. Was that something that attracted you about this story?
Yeah, I think on some level, I think maybe even a little bit more macro when Brian approached me and Steve Golan, one of the other producers who's also a producer on Spotlight, approached me about this. And they kind of gave me the quick pitch on the book and the idea, and then I quickly read the book. What really attracted me was you had this incredibly compelling, dare I say, entertaining novel, which really attacked and talked about these really difficult issues. So many that go beyond suicide, all the different issues, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, violence of all types. And I thought, man, this is just such a great jacket. It makes it accessible in some way, and makes it incredibly watchable. And it read, real credit to Jay, just a genius idea, these cassette tapes and what it meant, sort of going analog to send a message. to all these young people who were so connected digitally. And it's just such a great, compelling idea that, and having 2 daughters myself, I thought, wow, this is just, it couldn't be any more relevant. And now here we are, a year and a half later, it even feels more relevant for a lot of reasons in this country particularly. So, you know, I think that was the thing that just grabbed me. And Brian and I have collaborated in the past on things, and we just started chatting. I have a real respect for him and his vision and his intelligence and his humor and his compassion, and that combination was enough to jump on.
And Selena, you and Mandy, like Brian said, it was you had originally optioned it for a film, and now as producers, I'm curious how you feel about this, you know, extended, being able to really go into 13 episodes and.
I think it worked better as a series once we figured out, like, meeting with certain people. And to be honest, we started meeting with people who wanted to make this project a little younger. And I know it is kind of geared towards young adults, but once we met with Netflix and we knew what Brian was doing, and obviously Tom coming on board was such a privilege. So I was okay with it. I thought it was meant to be a series, but I mean,
the book reads as a series, and when we were trying to make it into a feature, the characters weren't being 3-dimensional, so you couldn't really get the backstory on why the kids were, you know, treating, you know, Hannah the way that they were, or each other, and so this gave us some more opportunity to expand, you know, on the particular issues at hand.
And Selena, you initially, when it was going to be a movie, were going to play Hannah, right?
correct.
So
Yeah. Well, my mom found the book. So my mom spends hours in like Barnes and Nobles, which unfortunately is slowly not existing. But she would come home and she would find these books, and I was doing my TV series at the time, so I was maybe 16, 17. So it would have made sense, and I just believed in what it was. When I read the book, I thought that it was something that I could relate to. My fans in particular, I see it constantly from kids who are authentic and tell me what they feel and what they go through. And I mean, obviously, as the project went on, I can't picture anybody else being Hannah but Catherine. When you watch her on screen, she's just captivating, and she is Hannah. It just worked out the way it was supposed to, and I'm just glad I got to still watch it happen. So
I think we're so lucky that the 2 of you stuck with it. You know, because I think
we weren't gonna let it go.
and I think if I'm right, you guys had to fight for it a little bit. Like, you had to go to Jay and prove that you should have it, right? And I think that's just, I think about this a lot, like, because there's a lot of projects in this town. You guys know this, that, you know, you try and develop them as feature, and they end up on someone's shelf on some studio somewhere. You know, and Mandy and Selena and, you know, Crystal as well just were determined that it was not going to end up on a shelf. So. Yeah,
it started out as a transitional piece for her and coming out of the channel. And then it just became so personal, and he blessed us with having the opportunity to develop it. And I'm like, I cannot let him down. And when Brian came on board, he was like probably the first one that we're like, okay, he gets it. And I say this all the time, it's so creepy how much it's exactly the way we envisioned it, that he must have a chip in our brain or something, because it's just executed so beautifully.
Yeah, Jay, how is that, having your book be, you know, adapted, and, you know, on some level I imagine it's every writer's dream, and on another level it's like, I worked so hard on this.
Yeah, both of those things. It was very scary at times, especially as it became, yes, this is going to happen. Yes, it is an author's dream, but at the same time you feel so protective of it. But you know, every time a new person came on board, like when I first met with Selena and Mandy, I always tell people I've never had a conversation with people who completely got the book, which is, as an author, a great place to start if you're going to go down this road. And then when I met Brian, it's the exact same thing. Had a conversation with him at his house, and I'm like, this guy gets it. And you just have all these surrounding by people who completely get my story, knowing when they have to adapt it and change things, that they're going to do it already understanding the story. And I just felt so confident. And every time we would, you know, sell it for a feature film or whatever, and then that didn't happen, I would be like, maybe I should take it back, because what if it just doesn't go right? But I just trusted them so much, and it turned out amazing. Like, as an author, I cannot be happier. I think it's a perfect adaptation.
It is, and Selena, as you said, it's hard to imagine someone other than Catherine playing Hannah. I think that to play that, she's funny and quick and smart as hell and interesting and sad and vulnerable, and there's so many things. I was wondering, Catherine, how you kind of found all of those things, and how was that playing all of that in one person?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the first credit kind of has to go to Jay, obviously, for writing the book and for giving Hannah a life and to keep sticking with the story. But then, obviously, to Brian. I feel like these characters, Hannah included, Clay, all of them are so well-rounded and they're so human that it's easy as an actor and also as a person to be able to just identify with those feelings.
Yeah, and Dylan with Clay, in some ways, you're, when you watch it, the viewer is kind of, you're the viewer's way in on some level, which carries with it, a pressure, I think. So tell me about finding that character.
Well, I was, I don't know if I trusted myself in terms of bringing the character to life in the best way, but luckily, thanks to Jay from the original book and thanks to Brian for writing such great material for all of us, it was, I had faith in myself by the end, and I had so much faith in the project, and it really was a really special experience. But it does feel like a lot of pressure, though. I mean, when you're listening to the tapes, you're being told the story through this character. It's I never had so much responsibility before.
Had you both read the book before you auditioned or whatever, or?
I had not read the book before I auditioned. I'm sorry, Jay.
That's okay.
It's wonderful though. I read it now. It's.
I'm not trying to create a straight
well,
No, I actually have to say I hadn't read it either, and to be quite honest, I didn't know exactly what I was in for, and I think I got about 3 weeks into shooting and was like, this is kind of heavy, isn't it? But it's also great, and I love how it's just balanced so well, particularly in the series and with the writing. You get that wonderful joy about the high school experience mixed with obviously what happens to Hannah. So I like it. I love it.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things that you might want to know something but not know everything, and so it might have been helpful to you to not have read the book and not know how everything went. Did you sit down with them and kind of tell them the beats of the story, or was it just kind of on a script by script?
I don't remember. I do think we did warn everyone who had to come on board the show and had some tough scenes in their future. I think we tried to warn them, although you sort of can't know until you actually go there. But I think the great thing about whether or not they had read the book, I love the way this works in the best situations. And Tom, I'm sure you've seen it too. It's like it started with Jay's characters, and then the writers and I wrote scripts, and then Tom came on board, and then the actors came on board. And so at a certain point, Clay sort of is Jay Asher's Clay, and then he gets shared with me, and then he gets shared with Tom, and then he gets shared with Dylan. And so the Clay that results on screen is really a collaboration of all of us. You know what I mean? And it's Dylan who has to go out there and make it true, right? But we're all there sort of coming together to make it happen. And it's one of the most exciting things about that is seeing, Clay and Hannah come to life. And it's not just, it's Jay's book, it starts there, but it's not just that, it's not just the scripts, it's everything. And then it's these two people and their castmates saying, I will make this live.
And how is that when you take a book that is beloved and it goes through Brian and Tom, and then you each give this these characters a slight tweak, and then you have a huge audience coming to this that may have read the book and may have their own ideas about these characters and who they were.
Well, it's a huge responsibility. I think it's a huge responsibility, and I felt a huge responsibility first and foremost to Jay and his book, and also to Selena and Mandy and really all the producers who made it happen, Anonymous, who made it possible for me to write the pilot. You feel a real responsibility, but it really drives you home. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again really quickly. I was doing a college event. I do a lot of college events with musical theater students because I sort of come from the world of musical theater. And I was talking intensely with this group of musical theater students about my show Next to Normal, which had been about some some really tough issues as well. And oftentimes what would happen, and I'm sure Jay's seen a ton of this in visiting schools, he's visited thousands of schools, this was very, very quiet, sort of scared girl was sort of standing off to the side afterwards at the meet and greet, sort of a little shy to approach me. And I've seen a lot of that with Next to Normal fans, right? So I was like, oh, she wants to tell me about her family or some issue. And so finally I made a point of making my way over to her and introducing myself, thinking that she wanted to talk about my show. And she said, I read that you're adapting 13 Reasons Why. I'm like, yeah, I am. And she's like, don't mess it up. And I could see in her face like how important the book was to her. And I think I had read her right. I had read her as someone who had found something in the world to hold on to that was super important to her, and that was kind of a lifeline.
I only had to give her $20 to do that.
Yeah. But then I would go to, we went, to some of Jay's events, and it's the same thing. You meet kids who, this book is not only an incredible read, but it's a lifeline, and it's a clue. And we've all had these things, right? You've all had those pieces of art or entertainment, whatever you want to call it, that lets you know that you're not alone. That somehow this Jay Asher guy understands what I went through when I thought nobody else in the world was going through that. And that, I think, is the responsibility all of us felt, which is how can we be as true as possible to the heart of this book, even though it's going to change in form. How can we be as true as possible to the heart of this book? And I think that if we can do that, we will hopefully, be true to all the people who love it so much.
And you hit that hard in the series. I'm not going to say more than the book, because I love the book, but the way that it's not just Clay and Hannah's characters where you get inside their heads, you get to know the stories of all these other characters, and so there are definitely going to be more people watching it who can identify in different ways with some of those characters that you couldn't in the book.
And I love what you said, and I think it is that book for so many people that it's like, I get you get, this makes sense, and it's also a wonderful, entertaining TV series to watch. And Tom, I was wondering if you could even, as a director and producer, talk a little bit about finding that tone, and Brian, you as well with writing it, finding that balance and the right tone to hit for the series.
Well, maybe 2 points of that. One, I think, having 13 episodes, and I think it was just a great idea to deliver it that way. And Brian's concept for the show was so smart, and it really allowed us to have all these sort of variant textures, humor and drama side by side, and the quirky, weird things that makes high school so enjoyable, and then the deeply tragic and difficult things that makes high school so difficult. And so we really had the space to really explore that. And as Jay was just saying, we could really go deeper into the lives of all these separate characters. And I think, second to that, maybe outside of all of that wonderful texture, I think Brian early on and our partners at Netflix, who were great, and Paramount, we're all aligned in the idea of making a show where young people could really reach up to. I think is a term we kept coming back to. Something that felt sophisticated and elegant and real and honest. And I think in doing that, we're actually going to reach a wider audience. One, because I think young people will do that. The palates of young people are incredibly sophisticated right now. And we had these incredibly talented actors who could deliver very nuanced performances. I haven't worked with an ensemble that big, that young before. That was such a joy to watch every day, all the various characters and actors, and come to work every day and just watch them deliver time and time again. And for some of them, like Catherine, hadn't had a lot of experience on screen. It was incredible to watch her growth immediately and exciting. And you can feel that just in the same energy that you feel in high school, people kind of growing and exploding and exploring. It's all really exciting. So, I think that's what we were trying to do with the show, create something that young people could really, that was in no way condescending or easy. And I think we're all very proud. I think it started with your vision too, and I think all very proud of having delivered something like that.
And Brian, if you can talk about the when you were writing it, just
sure. Well, part of it, definitely kept coming back to Jay's book, because the experience of reading Jay's book is it's a page turner. It's a page turner about some incredibly important things, but it's also, you can't put it down. There's nothing weighty about it at all. As important as those issues are, there's nothing heavy about the book in terms of sort of the reading experience. So we wanted a show that was sort of compulsively watchable. And in sort of adapting it, we had this thing in the writer's room we called the press play moment. because obviously watching television on Netflix is different than watching television other ways, because it's the binging of it, and we wanted to sort of really kind of write towards that and have a moment at every episode, and that just compelled you to watch the next one, and secrets in every episode that you had to keep watching to unpack. And that again comes back to Jay's book. There's a line in Jay's book where, how many secrets can one high school have? And the answer, as we all know, is a lot.
Yeah, I think you guys all have 8 episodes. I had to stop myself after watching 5 because I binged them, and I felt like you need to pace yourself, because it is an intense story, as much as there are all of these other, kind of fun in high school and whatever things going on. Do you have thoughts? I mean, obviously they all go out at once on, it's on Netflix. Do you have opinions about how you want people to consume this? Anyone weigh in?
Backwards, I think.
No. Although technically it should work backwards.
I think once you start the series, the first few episodes are really captivating and kind of understanding of their relationship and what happened to Hannah, but it starts getting darker. I think that as it progresses, you just see a side of Clay when you see that he's this confused, sad, maybe a little bit shy, and it turns into this, without giving anything away, but it's just, you get to see these arcs, and I feel like it really allows people to take their time with it. I don't know, I watch things I'll sit there all day and watch it, so it's up to however people want to kind of speak.
Ideally, people will watch it over and over again and force other people to watch it as well.
Break Netflix.
Well, that's what we're hoping, right? I guess.
Yeah. And then read the book.
and then buy the new edition of the book.
Yes.
Yeah, the 10th anniversary.
With Dylan and Catherine on the cover, looking awesome.
I geeked out.
All right, well, I want to open it up to some questions. We have a few minutes. Yeah.
I don't have a microphone, so I'll speak loudly. Okay. This question is for Selena. I'm Chloe with CNN. My question for you is, do you or did you see yourself in the main character? When you were in high school, did you go through any? You were famous as a teen, so I don't know if you had any dark times that maybe you could relate to, but could you relate to her? And why do you think that this show is important right now?
I think that my high school experience may have been a little amplified, so I wouldn't say it was worse, but it definitely made it harder. And to be frank with you, I actually was going through a really difficult time when they started production. I went away for 90 days, and I actually met tons of kids in this place that were talking about a lot of the issues that these characters are experiencing. I would say yes, I've had to deal with it on a different scale, whether it was just kids or growing up in the biggest high school in the world, which was Disney Channel. It was also adults that had the audacity to kind of tell me how I should live my life, and it was very confusing for me. It was so confusing. I had no idea who I was going to be, what I'm still going to become, and it definitely hits home. That's why I wanted to make sure that I was still a part of this project in any way, even though I would never let anybody take this away from me and my mom. But it hits a very important part in me, and I think this is what they need to see. Like, we're not gonna post things that are like, hey, be empowered, because that's not what they want to see. Unfortunately, kids don't care. They don't care. They have to see something that's gonna shake them. They have to see something that's frightening and follow these people who they're going to instantly fall in love with these characters. I want them to understand it. I would do anything to be able to have a good influence on this generation, and it's hard, but I definitely relate to everything that was going on, and I was there for the last episode, and I was a mess just seeing it all come to life, because I've experienced just that, for sure.
Yep.
Hi. I'm Susana from Mexico. This is for Brian.
I'm
here. Okay.
There you are.
Hi.
Hi, Susanna.
After doing Next to Normal, 13 Reasons Why, I mean, it's not the same story, but it does deal with a lot of the same topics, young death. And now I see that Dear Evan Hansen is the biggest new musical, which also deals with that. do you feel it's a generational thing? Do you feel it's something we all have to talk about, or where does this come from? Because it's a new sensibility that I feel that's coming up in art all over.
I think it's a great question. I think that what those works and others like them have in common, and why it's so important for me to do things like Next to Normal and 13 Reasons Why, is that we have the ability through fiction, through art, to tell stories and talk about things that are very difficult to talk about in life. And they're especially difficult for young people to talk about. You know, witness Dear Evan Hansen. They're especially difficult for young people to talk about with their parents. And they're difficult to talk about in the first person. So my hope with 13 Reasons Why is that kids and parents will watch it, even if they don't watch it together, maybe they'll watch it in the same house on different screens, and they can talk about it. And someone can talk about how Hannah's feeling, or how Clay's feeling, or what Bryce did, or why Justin did what he did. And they can have these conversations about these incredibly difficult and really life or death topics without starting from the place of fear or having to protect their own secrets. The last song in Next to Normal is called Light, and I think about it a lot, thinking about things like Dear Evan Hansen and thinking about 13 Reasons Why. Jay wrote this book that was incredibly, incredibly tragic, that was dark in so many ways, but ultimately was hopeful, and ultimately was about bringing light back into the world. And I think our series gets really dark, I think in a way that kids are going to recognize, and I think they may recognize it from their own experiences, but I think that the fact of its being, and the fact of it being an experience for kids, for teenagers, for adults who care about them, for adults who remember being a teenager, I think it's an experience that ultimately is bringing light to very difficult and dark topics in a very difficult and dark time.
Yeah, a lot of people in the industry were afraid to touch this issue. And I think with both Brian and Jay and Tom, they kind of went head on. And one of our concerns is we didn't want it to come out as a PSA, because the kids who are actual bullies would not turn in to watch, you know, a PSA or a documentary. So adding the cool element to it and the relatable element, it seems like it's a teen show. So the kids are all going to watch it, and they're possibly going to be learning things that they don't even realize that they're learning and recognizing it. I personally think the parents are going to have the hardest time watching this, because they don't want to see their kid being that bully or seeing the signs of the loss of Hannah. And so I really am going to be interested whenever it comes out to see how adults respond to it. Because you're right, Brian, the kids already know this. They see this every day.
I see it. You know, I think you're absolutely right, Mandy. I mean, that's what we are. And that was what Tom was saying was so great about all of us and about Paramount and about Anonymous and about Netflix, is that we all said we are not going to shy away from it. We're not going to be delicate around the very, very brutal things to watch and to depict. We are going to show them. We're not going to be gratuitous. We're not going to exploit, but we're going to be honest. And I really do think, as Mandy was saying, it's going to be much harder for those of us in our, in our 30s and 40s and 50s to watch than for teenagers to watch, because for them, I think it's going to feel honest, and it's going to speak to the life that they're living. We don't like to think about it, right? We don't like to believe that that's what they're having to go through, but it is. And I hope that it helps all those generations.
And then the adults who watch the show, though, will see themselves in the adults in the series, their own fears. And that's what I love about the series, is having those extra characters you get to see more of, to show the audience, yeah, we understand why this is difficult, especially when you're raising kids, why this is difficult to talk about, difficult for the characters in the show to talk about.
You almost read my mind, because that's what I was going to ask you about, is how you feel the show will impact on the adults that are parents. But on the heels of what you just said, will there be opportunities for you to have to communicate or connect with? I mean, that's the great thing about Netflix, is that it provides a whole different universe or an environment for you to connect with both the kids and the adults that are going to be seeing this. Because as a parent of somebody who's now an adult, I remember what she went through as a teenager, and I wish there were more series like this available for her to have been able to watch at that time. So I'm curious to know how you might go forward and use this as an opportunity to connect with both adults and children, bring them together to understand things.
Well, I think that one of the great things about one of the positive things about social media, which can have, and in the show has some really negative impacts, is that we have the ability, and Netflix is a digital platform, so we can connect with, Selena's already connecting with her fans, Jay connects with his fans about the show coming up, and so there really is that dialogue going on with kids already. I know that I don't think I can say anything about it right now, but Netflix is also working on some other things to really sort of help everyone watching the show be able to process their feelings about it, to process sort of these troubling issues involved. I think probably there will be news about that at some point shortly. I'm looking in the audience and I can't even see anybody, so I don't know who I'm looking for exactly. But it absolutely, I think that everyone who has been part of this and everyone who watches it knows that there's going to be a lot coming out of it that is challenging for everybody to process, adults, kids alike.
Does that weigh on you?
Yeah, it weighs on. Yeah, it absolutely does. But it weighs on us all, and I think it weighs on us all most in that we did everything we could in our power to get it right. All of us. Catherine and Dylan and all of our cast, every single moment, getting it right. Not just getting it the right in the sense of that actor sense, but getting the right of am I telling this truthfully, so that the kid who's watching this or the parent who's watching this who has lost a child or who has been through this will recognize it and will believe it's told honestly. Even if it's not the exact experience they had, it's honestly told. And I think I think and hope and trust that that's what we did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Guys. And this is for Dylan and Selena. Selena, we know each other from music and movies. Do you think you producing this, being out there, first of all, it's like you're growing up in front of our eyes, now you're an adult, and do you think you'll be able, by your celebrity, by people knowing you from many different realms, will push the series even more?
I hope so. I think the connection that I've had, whether I liked it or not, a lot of people have watched me grow up, and I think I do feel like I have these conversations with my fans because I've never really wanted to be the kind of unapproachable person. I never wanted to seem like I had it all together ever, and they tell me these things. I can't even tell you how many meet and greets. For the last tour I did, or all of my tours, I do a meet and greet before and after my show. And the stories that they tell me, they trust me with what they're going through because I think they understand that I'm very honest, and whether I like it or not, people have seen a lot of my mistakes, and I had to use that as a good thing because then they're able to trust me with that. I want to be a part of this because I think this is what they want, this is what they need. So I don't know. I guess I just really wanted to do something that I could be a part of where people could relate to it, and I think kids really want that. They crave that. It's hard right now. Like, I can't stand social media. I can't stand what they're looking at. I can't stand what they think is reality. And this show is as real as it possibly could get.
As a mom, she'll laugh at the story, but she had a meet and greet, and there's this one girl that was like shaking and sobbing, and they all give you like notes or books or whatever, and she said the only reason why I haven't killed myself is because I was going to meet you. And I got in trouble by the publicist too. I just ran out.
Because we sobbed and we got sad, and my mom decides to chase this person down, and now has her email, and they have a relationship.
And she started an suicide prevention, and she's in London, and she's married now with a child and happy. But I just went out and held her, and to hear the things she went through, that's all she wanted was someone to hold her. And I probably held her, and she was just sobbing for 15 minutes in the lobby. And they want that, and a lot of people don't think that. They think they're afraid, but it's like that subtle thing is just paying attention. And
we're just so disconnected to people now. Mm-hmm. Like, the kids just want that, or teens, I shouldn't say kids, but that's what they're craving. They really want that. And it's hard when you're looking at something every single day. You're missing your entire life in front of you, and you think you have to look a certain way. There are 17-year-olds who look older than me. That freaks me out. I had like pigtails in my hair at 17. Like, it's a very real thing. That's why I am glad it took this long for us to create something like this, because we held out, I think, for something great.
Well, a perfect note to end on. It is great. Congratulations to all of you. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello? My name's Hannah and I'm auditioning for the role of JonBenet Ramsey. Do you know who killed JonBenet Ramsey?
Dear white people, here's a list of acceptable Halloween costumes. Pirate, slutty nurse, any of our first 43 presidents. Top of the list of unacceptable costumes, me.